Okay, YouTube, this is how I did it. These are LT1 heads out of a 1994 Z28, and I need to go ahead and lap the valves in. And so what I've been doing is placing the valve spring remover and putting the nut onto it, as so. Turn it by hand first. Leave it flat on a 4x4. The reason a 4x4 is because it's what I had left and around in the garage. So we'll go ahead and tighten this down, and you'll see the spring retainers, or valve spring keepers, or valve keepers, depending on what store you go to. See how they're slightly depressed now. So if you pick this up, because it needs to be a one-person operation, put that there. Now you can push down here, and you don't have to have as much leverage on the handle. So now that you've done that, all you need to do now is back it out. Before you back it out, take whatever counterweight or balance or whatever the hell that thing is. Take that out and then just reverse your ratchet. Always do it by hand. Don't use power tools. So now that we've got this coming out, what we need to do next is grind the valve. Now these heads I put together and I forgot to grind the valves. They were never used, never installed. I've just forgot. So we'll go ahead and take the spring and the top valve stem guide, and we're going to use the Permatex valve grinding compound. It's good, it's easy to use. So flip the head up, and you can slide your valve out. You don't have to slide it out, but you can see how this is dirty, and it needs to be polished and reseated. It does have oil on it because I used some assembly lube when I slipped them in the first time. So here we are, putting on your valve grinding compound, and we'll make sure we're down on the edges and not just up there on the top. Now when we put it back into the head, slip it through the valve guide, and it pops all the way up. Now, the next thing you can do is you need to be able to turn the valve inside the head. Now this is a valve lapping tool. These things suck. If your valve's got any, they just don't do it. What you can do, that I did, it worked out very well, is I took a 9/16 socket and I put a piece of 5/16 fuel line. Now these valve stems are actually 11/32, 5/16 fuel line, 10/32, as we all know. Put that in there, and I glued it into this socket. I had extras, and it's a 9/16 socket. I went ahead and put the drill adapter into that, and then I got the valve stem and slipped this on. And then, if you get a 1/4 inch socket or open end wrench, and just put your fingers underneath the head and keep pressure on the valve, and you'll hear it grinding. Now that grinding is the valve compound going and smoothing out. They say once it stops grinding that it should be smooth and the faces should be mated to each other. Now remember, I oiled the valve stem earlier because you don't want to burn up your valve seals. Your valve stem seals. A few turns back and forth. And I'm putting pressure on with my fingers up through the bottom of the valve. Now, if you release pressure down a little bit on the valve, let it go, and spin it pretty quickly, it will centrifugally force any of the remaining valve grinding compound out to the edge of the valve. Now that's a lot of pressure from underneath, and I'm still hitting a little bit of a rough spot. Now, having the power drill bit adapter on here, you could do it with a power drill. I don't recommend it. I think all of it should be done by hand. That way you're not going to burn up your valve stem seal. You're not going to run across a problem that the drill, you won't be able to hear it over the drill. So, and I do use DeWalt tools and they are quiet, but unless it's by hand, you won't be able to hear the grinding and when it stops. Okay, now we've got it so where the two pieces of metal are just barely touching. Put more pressure on it. And you can go with metal and metal on that point, but it is to the standard of being mated to one another. So, I haven't figured this part out yet. This part's a pain in the ass. But at least you know that 5/16 fuel line is in there and it works really well. So now we need to slide our valve out and clean any of the liquid that's left off the valve. So as you see here, can't hear it, there's still some liquid left, but there's no grinding, there's no powder, or there's no compound in it anymore. It's purely just a ground down liquid. It's not even a paste form. So we'll go ahead and wipe this out, and then I'll flip the head and show you guys, or girls, what we actually wound up with. So wiped it out, turn it over, and you can see, maybe if I quit screwing around, you can see where there's the head and the valve seat. You can see that it is smooth, clean, not polished, but I wasn't going for that. If you want to polish it, then by all means polish the heads on your 94 Z28. I'm not that guy. I'm putting the engine together for my son's first car. Swapping it into a 1980 Camaro. So now what we're going to do is put a little bit of oil on the valve stem. Get that just well lubricated. I did try using engine assembly lube, but these valve guides are so tight that anything I put on there just got scraped off as I was inserting the valves. So if I do this, I get a good, easy seat into it. So now we're going to reverse our process of putting our spring and the keeper on top. And we're going to go ahead and put our valve spring removal tool, again flat on 4x4s. We're going to tighten this down by hand until it gets nice and tight. And then we're going to run it down with our ratchet until our spring starts to compress. All right, don't go too tight. If you go too tight, you'll end up removing the stud when you back it out. So again, we put it up on something else. This just aluminum wheel I have, don't even know what it's for. So we put that on there, put pressure here, pressure goes down, put your keeper on the top. That way it'll stay in place, gravity holds it. And then see if you can work the bottom one in, sliding it around. And of course, because I'm trying to show other people and make a video of it, it's being a pain in the ass. So I'll slide this forward and looks like we got it that time. So there is another thing that I learned is if your fingers are oily and slippery, and just a small pair of needle nose will just move those enough to get them out and get them seated back into the groove. So now when you take the pressure off with your hand, they're not in the groove, but they're held in place. So then remove the block, your extra piece here. Go ahead and reverse your ratchet, and you are done. Now I realize that was only for lapping the valves, but one of the common things and problems with these engines are the valve stem seals go bad on them. The engine itself may be fine, but the stem seals will go bad. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope it helped, and I'm going to call it "This is how I did it," because I don't care if it's right. It worked for me. So this is how I did it. Thanks, guys.